Well, there's much optimism that the second Trump administration will fix many of these foreign policy blunders that were brought about by the Biden administration and their weakness. I think some of that will happen, but it's not going to happen without the spiritual side of this. We need to be praying into this. It's not just the political. I mean, you cannot look at the international stage and what is happening globally and not see, unless you don't have the eyes to see, but if as Christians we have to have the spiritual eyes to see what is happening. Well, joining me now to talk about what's happening in Ukraine, because as we talked about earlier, President Donald Trump, President-elect Trump, has said that he wants to see an immediate ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Will that happen? How can it happen? Well, FRC's own Ken Blackwell just returned today from the war-torn nation of Ukraine, was in Kyiv. He was there assisting with humanitarian efforts as people are in desperate need there. And he was helping with many of the Christian organizations. And he joins me now in studio. Ken previously served as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Human Rights Commission. Today, he's Senior Fellow for Human Rights and Constitutional Governance at FRC. Ken, welcome back to Washington Watch, and welcome back to the United States.
Tony, it's good to be here with you.
You actually are pretty good. Long trip.
It's a very, very long trip, but a very meaningful trip for me, just to see how the human spirit is not dominated by the mischief and the rage of Russian attack.
A lot of opposition among conservatives here to our support of Ukraine. I mean, we're not involved on the ground there. We're funding the effort there. What's your sense there on the ground in Ukraine as what you observed while you were there?
There is a strong resistance to the Russian aggression. But I think, as Chuck Holton said to you earlier today, it looks as if there's going to have to be some trade-off to bring this war to an end. But one of the things that was encouraging on this trip speaks to what you just said to your last guest. There is a wide network of prayer warriors on the ground across denominations and faith traditions that actually form, I think, the most significant wall to Russian dominance that exists today. I think Donald Trump is a peacemaker. He's a keen negotiator. There are going to have to be some immediate give on the Ukrainian side as it relates to Crimea. But I think what we have to bring is an assurance that the 1994 Budapest Accords, where we told Ukraine if they gave up their stockpile of nuclear weapons, we would in fact give them security from Russian aggression.
President-elect Trump has drawn a pretty bright line here, saying a couple of things. One, he's saying that there's got to be an immediate ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. He has said all of the hostages in the Middle East that are being held from Israeli hostages have to be released. What happens if that doesn't happen?
Well, I think what we're going to see first is that this is a president determined to restore the USA to energy dominance. He does that starts to bankrupt the Russians. So I think there will be economic pressures that will result in Russia's collapse, strengthening the U.S. dollar as the reserve.
I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I think what we will see a year from now is how, again, the policies of this administration, present administration, the Biden-Harris administration, fueled this international, global just chaos because they wanted to appease the green crowd and cut off American energy sources. Yeah.
And again, consistent with the radical left in this country, Russia and its aggression against Ukraine, what you have is a nation state where they have successfully run God and faith out of the public square, now attacking a nation state that sees an expanding role.
So you have, if the Trump administration, they have said this, the incoming administration, of course, they have a Congress that's already there, turns the spigot back on for American energy, fossil fuels, we become, like we were 4 years ago, a exporter. That drives not only Russia and their ability to make money down, but Iran and all these other bad actors. And China.
Yes. And I think the other thing that you're going to see from the Trump administration, incoming Trump administration, is the strengthening of the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency across the globe. That, too, will, in fact, hit the ball back over the net to the bad guys.
Right. So a lot of this can be done. This is what I think made him successful the first time, but I think even more so now because he comes in with a much better understanding, is that to have strength doesn't necessarily mean you got to punch somebody. You can step on their toe. Yeah. And that's what I think we're going to see is through our economic policy, we're gonna really hurt a lot of these bad guys.
Absolutely, and I think it's also important for him to remember that part of this fight, in terms of good versus evil, is that there is a role, a spiritual role, in this battle.
That's so important, Ken. I'm not sure that the incoming administration has a complete handle on that issue. In fact, I think they had a better handle on that in 2016 than they do in 2024. So that's something we really need to be praying about.
We have to lift our voices. Pray and lift our voices.
Yeah, because I think you combine the two, and you're going to have a very successful 4 years for the Donald Trump administration, because I think pursuing solid economic policies grounded upon solid moral and spiritual principles is going to lead to success and the benefit of the whole world.
Well, absolutely. This is not for the timid, and it's not for the prayerless.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Ken Blackwell, welcome back. Glad you're safe. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Always good to be with you, Tony.